Yeah, thanks a lot for joining us. How about we start by introducing Eagle Filters to the audience here tonight? Juha, would you like to give a quick introduction to Eagle?
Yeah. Okay. Eagle Filters has been more than 20 years, and we refocused ourselves a couple of years ago because of turmoil in European market, and at that time, after that, clean tech investor Loudspring came on board, and nowadays we are focusing on electricity production and especially with gas turbine power plants, and that's our core business at the moment.
Okay, and this is with filtration, air filtration, is that correct?
Yes, air filtration and air cooling.
Now, Timo.
Yeah, well, maybe for the benefit of the crowd, because not everyone is like familiar with what the product is. So it's an air filter, which is high performance filter, which makes a gas turbine much more efficient. So we are able to save huge amount of fuel in natural gas turbines. And so we are talking about 22% of electricity production in the world, which this is affecting. So it's a huge deal.
Yeah, and so you're saving money obviously for these plants, but so what is the kind of tangible environmental impact as a result of air filtration, I guess is the big question.
A typical project, what we do is somewhere 150 megawatt, 200 megawatt plant, and if it has reasonable running hours a year, this CO2 reduction is from 4,000 tons to 15,000 tons per year.
Serious.
So I want to continue on that because we've taken a look at all the impacts of our firms, and actually when you look at the CO2 savings, it's actually Eagle Filters that we have the most impact currently. And this is only coming from a handful of power plants now that we have as first customers. And but so the savings here can be, the fuel efficiency improvements are in the range of 2.5% for a power plant. But then when we're talking about over 20% of the electricity production in the world, the numbers begin to be really big. So even in this couple of first customers that we have, it's already the biggest impact for Loudspring. And but the potential there's about 10,000 of these turbines in the world that could benefit from Juha's invention. And it's also important to realize that it's actually quite a small amount of customers needed to cover a lot of those turbines. So already you have ENGIE, the largest gas turbine operator in the world, as a customer. So from just a small number of customers, you can already reach a significant amount of these turbines. So I think if you think about like where can you quickest make the biggest impact, I think we are like close to one of the biggest impact firms we have seen.
I think when it comes to some of these, I'm going a little off script here, but like when it comes to some of these discussions around gas turbines and their role moving forward as well, I know there are many people who look at gas as only a bad thing in many cases, but there is this necessary transition that we're going through with the energy system. Is there anything you can add to that kind of transition and how Eagle can play a role there?
Yeah, I think anyhow we have to use gas. Like you said, it is a vehicle to do the transition. But finally, I hope that when technologies to produce hydrogen with solar and wind emerge, then we get also the gas turbines. They are running at the night time when the solar isn't available. So that's why I think our customer base will continue for decades operating, but mainly on night time and busy morning and evening hours.
And well, if I continue, so idealistically, of course, we would want to shut down all the fossil power plants on Earth. I would love to see that, but then in reality, we will see a lot of fossils for some time, and I would be really happy to phase out coal as soon as possible, because if you take a look at the CO2 emission of natural gas, it's only a fraction of coal-fired power plants. And at the same time, it complements very well the intermittency of solar and wind, because it can be adjusted very quickly to the production of those renewable sources. So for the next decades, we will be using gas, and as Juha said, eventually we may even start using hydrogen in the same power plants.
Yeah, it's a really interesting discussion. As an Australian, you know, coal has been a really big deal for Australia over many years. So it's an interesting transition that we're in. I think maybe for the audience, it might be interesting to hear about the scale of these filters, because Juha and I have had a discussion earlier about this, and to get your head around just how big these filters are, and like, can you give any kind of scale to the audience so they can understand?
The first of the machine itself, the 250 megawatt gas turbine sucks the air of this space where we are in 2 seconds. And
everybody hold your breath real quick.
And to clean that amount of air, it means that you have to have a quite fast establishment for that. So there are thousands of modules that are about 600 by 600 millimeters in physical size.
Yeah.
But there can be up to 2,000 pieces of those in one filter building.
Crazy. Yeah, it's interesting. I wanted him to bring one to show everyone the size of these filters, but there would be a pretty crowded space suddenly. I think this young man's got a question. Yeah, we could talk about that if you like.
Hello, Alexander Lidgren, CEO of Loudspring. I have a question about payback times for the customers. Have we talked about that? Otherwise, I would very much like you to.
Our record is 6 days. And it is because some of these units which are operating in very high dust burden areas like in China or South Korea and so on, the aerodynamic degradation of the machine is so fast that by better air cleanliness they can achieve that kind of payback times, like 6 days for the investment.
That was 6 days, everyone. Let that sink in for a second. That's really incredible to think about. Do you have anything else to add here for Eagle? Because we're going to move on to another company. I'm going to get you to stay on the stage, though, Timo, because we're going to welcome on Jussi Koskinen from Swap. So, yeah, nothing more on Eagle from you. Thanks a lot for joining us, Juha.
Thank you.
Real pleasure. Real pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.